Welcome to 5 Minutes with Andy. Once a month, Virtual Inc.'s CEO, Andy Freed, will be offering you tips, tricks, and insights into leadership, management, and business skills. In this episode, Andy welcomes Leah Sibilia, Senior Director of Events, Margot Rodger, Vice President of Events and Meetings, and Julie Utano, Senior Director of Client Services. This podcast discusses lessons learned with returning to events, from preparedness, new ways of thinking, and so much more. To tell you more, here's Andy Freed.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's 5 Minutes with Andy. I'm joined today by three folks who have been in our events and client services team for some time, and they've all seen their lives change quite a bit in the last couple of years as events have gone from face-to-face to online. But now, like the whatever it is that becomes the great butterfly, they're coming out again. So events are starting to emerge in their cocoon and be face to face. And I know we had our first one of those a few months ago. So we're here today to talk about some of the lessons that we've learned. So Margot, Leah, Julie, thanks so much for being here. I guess I'll start off with you, Margot. You've been, for the last few months, you've been somebody who we've seen only in TV. And now all of a sudden events are happening in 3 dimensions and people are out there again. First, tell me about the event that you did and a little bit of what you learned from it.
Sure. It was very exciting to be back in person. Julie and Leah were on the ground at this particular event in December. And it really was just a great learning opportunity or chance to put into work things that we've been working on over the past few months of getting back in person. Lots of different lessons learned in terms of preparedness, new ways of thinking about events, and so much more.
Great. So Leah, you drove a lot of the logistics. What went, from being back in a venue for the first time in the last few months, what went well and what surprised you?
I think all of the things that we had prepared for, with the pandemic went really well. And I think the things that...
Like what?
Well, I think the live streaming or knowing what we were going to provide to the virtual attendees versus what was only going to be delivered to the on-site attendees was really good. We were continually communicating with each of those groups so they knew exactly what they were getting and when they were getting it.
And what did you do, Leah, just to prepare for, the eventuality of, people's worries about health and testing? And did you have requirements in place? What did you do for all of that?
We worked with the client to kind of talk through what they wanted to have as their overall stance. Things could change with CDC guidelines or the hotel or county, city, state, et cetera. So we had a conversation to make sure that the client really figured out what they wanted to have regardless of how things changed. So we worked through, what their policy would be for masks. Would they require people to, supply their vaccination cards or negative tests within 72 hours before attending?
And Julie, you've worked with this client for some time. What were their expectations for this event, for going back face to face? Were they nervous about it? And how did they feel once the reality sank in?
Well, they were very nervous. This meeting had been planned really since 2020. So really it was almost full 2 years after they started to now. So a lot of things had changed. I think they were very nervous going in and felt that anything that could go wrong would, and were pleasantly and very happy with how everything went. I think they were very nervous. It was also a new team, Andy. This wasn't the staff that they had started planning this event with. So you had a whole new team. So they weren't sure. By the end, I will say that Leah and her peers in the events team are heroes right now with that client.
No, that's great. And so Margot, from having had this experience, do you think, is it time for people to start thinking about going back to face? Did this show you that can work? Did this show you that it's too soon? What did it tell you about the transition back to face events?
Yeah, I think it is definitely time to get back to face-to-face events, and that could look different for each client depending on their situation. It might not be time for certain clients with a large international population going face-to-face, but for groups that are meeting on a national or more local level, this was really doable. I think this group, as Julie mentioned, was super excited to get back in person and be at that reception with their signature drink at the end in order to celebrate. I think every client and every group is able to really customize what can work for them in person, as long as you talk through all the different options, the approaches, and kind of plan for all the scenarios in advance so that you can be prepared for any situation.
So Leah, if I were to come to you and say, okay, Margot talked me into it, we're going back to being face to face and we're going to have something, what are the top three things you'd tell me to worry about as I make that decision?
I think first, I would say don't necessarily do what you've always done. Let's take a look at the agenda and understand what the goals had been before for in person and see how they've adjusted and, throughout the pandemic, and make sure that we're delivering a kind of the expected experience and something that's going to be engaging for the attendees. I think two is also that same. I would probably do that twice, right? A lot of people are now just, oh, let's just zoom them in, and a lot of people think that that technology component is real easy, but there's a lot of complexity to consider with that. And with that comes some budget or some creative thinking. But I think technology and AV should not be something, just discarded or not thought of first or one of the top priorities. And then I think three is really make sure that I think the attendee experience is delivered on. And kind of going to that number one is really rethinking, why are we getting together? Why are people coming together? And really kind of, potentially reimagining the purpose of the conference or the meeting.
Got it. And Julie, from the perspective of the client, if we were to talk to the client, what are the three things they would say? Are they ready to do this again? What would their take be, and what would some of their takeaways be?
They're definitely ready to do it again. And definitely for what Leah said with the don't think about doing everything you did before. Committee meetings were really difficult when you're having people face to face. They're excited to be face to face. You've got four people on a screen and you don't have good audio. The experience for those four people on the screen was less than. So it's really important that you think about that. They also, listen to the feedback that we got from the virtual attendees, that they want something a little more interactive where they get sort of to ask a question or to participate. So I think for that, we're making some changes. We're switching our platform. And I think acoustics in the main plenary, if you're streaming, we learned about that, about really test that out. If you're zooming someone in and someone's in the back row of that room, can they hear? Because that's a situation where the people online can hear. But then we had some issues with the people that were there. So it's all these different things that we've never thought of. And no keynote can bring their updated presentation on a stick when you're going through a platform. I would say that is a big no-no.
That's great, and it's funny that the little things you learn. And I'll tell you, I'm excited. I'm trying out. There's a new meeting platform. Yeah, I'm meeting with three people, and I can meet with actual 3D life-size avatars of them around this technology called the lunch table, where we're going to all go to the same location where this table is and then be able to actually talk to one another real time without any audio or technology assistance. I'm pretty excited about this. It seems like it's going to replicate everything that I've done on Teams in a face-to-face environment. It's crazy. And for the three of you, thank you so much for guiding our clients through that as they make similar transitions. We're really looking forward to what the future holds for meetings and what the future holds for so many organizations. And appreciate you spending the time to talk about the lessons that you've learned along the way. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
Andy.
you.